Let me try to catch you up on what's been going on. I'm Nate, that's Troy, and I'm riding my Vespa GTS 300 from San Clemente, California to Hilton Head, South Carolina. And I'm not the only crazy person, because I'm participating in the 2023 Scooter Cannonball. Troy and I will be taking my Vespa and 4 other scooters to California on this trailer towed by this car as part of what we're calling our really bad 5-part plan. Find a car that doesn't run and fix it, prepare it to tow our trailer full of scooters, test it to make sure that it's reliable, then drive it from North Carolina to San Clemente, California, back to Hilton Head, South Carolina. And then, when we're all done, we're going to give the car away to someone who needs a car. And we'll know that we're giving them a good car because, well, we'll have just driven it from coast to coast towing a trailer. And now that I've got you caught up, welcome to part 3 of our really bad 5-part plan. And the testing officially begins. Now, we've driven the car, I don't know, maybe 200 or 300 miles up to this point, just running around. But Troy is taking the car to Pennsylvania and Michigan to visit some friends. So Troy put over 1,600 miles on the Crown Vic, and he didn't have any problems of any kind. But when he got back, this happened in my driveway. What you're hearing is the fuel pump not turning off. Also, the car won't start. That's right. Troy drove over 1,600 miles and then broke down in my driveway. I finally coaxed the car into starting, but it's not running very well. So I find that the relays are going nuts, and it's not just the fuel pump relay, it's all of them. I wasn't getting any codes from the dashboard, so I broke out the code reader, and the square indicates that it's receiving a code, but I'm not actually getting any codes, and these relays and the EEC power relay have been going nuts. And when they start clicking, the pump turns off and on. I'm pretty sure it's not the fuel pump because I've got good fuel pressure. So, you hear that? The relays are going nuts. So the question is, which relay is it? That fuel pump relay is going crazy, and I've already swapped it. Alright, so here's our symptoms. We've got a car that either doesn't start or starts and runs really bad. It's clearly misfiring. The fuel pump is not cutting off when it's supposed to. We have good fuel pressure. We have the fuel pressure that we're supposed to have. That leaves us with a couple of symptoms. The pump not turning off like it's supposed to. The fuel pump relay and the EEC relay kind of going nuts. And the fact that I can't seem to get any codes. So it's possible that there's a problem in this wiring harness, but I don't think there is. I've got crazy relays, a car that didn't start when it's hot, but a car that does start when it's cold. And the best I can tell, the only things that could cause all of these symptoms would be either a bad fuel pump, but I've got good fuel pressure, or the actual main PCU, or ECM as it is in this car. That's this box down here. That's the main computer for this car. And the only other thing that I can think of that might cause all these symptoms is this right here, the EDIS. That deals with the ignition system on these distributorless Fords. There's probably a proper diagnostic for all of this, but these parts are not super expensive, none of these parts, and we are coming down to the wire driving this thing to California. So I am going to start by simply buying a computer and swapping it, because I'm not getting any codes. And so that's exactly what we did. Now, normally we like to buy our electronic parts, our computers, our sensors, and things like that for our cars from a particular place. They cost a little more, but you always get the right part and it always works. This time, however, their lead time on this computer would have put us past our leave date, so that wasn't an option. Instead, we went to one of the more common auto parts franchises and picked up a computer there. We put in that computer and Troy goes to take the car for a quick test drive. It does start, so that's good. Yeah, that's right. He put it in drive and it stalled. So now the car does start and idle great and it backs up. But every time we put it in drive, it stalls. We do a little experimenting and we determine that the torque converter lock is just locked. In other words, the computer is giving the transmission bad information. So at this point, we are pretty confident that it is in fact a computer problem, but the auto parts store gave us the wrong computer. We return it, we get the right computer, and that did solve our problem. And at this point, it's time to begin towing tests. So I bring it to work. This is our first official towing test. I'm getting onto I-85. I'm not towing the trailer we're going to be towing. This one doesn't have brakes. It's a little bit lighter, but this trailer, of all the trailers I've owned, this trailer is one of the worst to actually tow. It's a good trailer, it's a useful trailer, but it's horrible to tow. So if it does well with this, it's going to do fine with any trailer, especially with the flatbed. It's going to be a lot lower profile, a lot less wind resistance. You can see that thing in the back there. But I'm now on the interstate, and I'm doing 70 miles an hour. It's doing good. And there we go, successful 40 miles or so. It did pretty well. You can definitely tell it's back there, but the trailer's sitting flat. The car's not bottoming out on anything. We were able to maintain highway speeds with no issues. And like I said, this trailer, I mean, it's flat. It's not real aerodynamic. It's got a single axle. It's not overloaded, but it's up towards its limit, and it doesn't tow great. So if it's towing this fine, that flatbed's going to be a dream behind it. Next, I have Connor, Troy's younger brother, help me hook up the actual trailer that we'll be taking to California and load the K-Truck on it. So I'm putting the K-Truck on here because it weighs about the same as the 5 scooters put together. So this will be a pretty accurate representation of how well we're going to do. It's mostly good news. The car tows pretty decently, all things considered. However, we did have one minor problem. The trailer brakes don't work properly. Now, before you throw Troy under the bus since he wired all this up, let me say that he actually did everything correctly. It turns out that one of the connectors that came with the kit just didn't make a good connection, so we took that out and soldered it instead. And then tried towing the truck again, this time around 150 miles, just to make sure that everything was working properly. And it was. The brakes work perfectly, and the car tows really well. Now, between work and working on the Crown Vic, I haven't spent any time prepping the Vespa, so I'm going to take this opportunity to do that. And while I'm doing that, let me answer a couple of questions that we've gotten repeatedly about the last couple of videos. First, why are we calling it Loose Gravel Garage? Well, yeah, we didn't put a whole ton of thought into this. There's a giant loose gravel sign hanging in my garage. And next, did we ever come up with a name for the car? We got a bunch of suggestions, and we are going to take one of them. Sort of. A viewer named Richard suggested Toad because the car was towed home on a trailer, and it's going to be towing a trailer. So in honor of that, we're going to be naming the car Trevor. Okay, trust me, it is related. So if you'll remember, my official rider number for the Cannonball is 934. But my stickers say 9 3/4. You may or may not catch that reference to Harry Potter. Platform 9 3/4. And if you've ever read the books, or maybe watched the movies, you might recall that Neville Longbottom had a pet toad named Trevor given to him by his grandmother. So, you see, it is related. Anyways, in addition to the regular maintenance, I also had to repair the rear rack, because when the dealer installed it, they stripped 2 of the 4 mounting points, so I had to retap those. And since I had stuff disassembled anyways, I took this time to make some of the silver parts black because, well, I can and I think it looks better. I also changed out my oil pan for one with a sight glass. And honestly, it should have come that way from the factory anyways. Then I installed a modulator in my tail light so that when I brake, I'm a little more visible. Of course, that didn't help me with the green Vespa because I got rear-ended anyways. And up to this point, I was doing pretty well, but here is where I messed up. I spent a ton of time desperately trying to find a place to install the air horn from my green Vespa. This new Vespa has a keyless ignition, and there's just no room left in there. I looked other places in the bike too. There's just nowhere to put this thing. And on that disappointing note, I put everything back together. Now the car's ready, the Vespa's ready, and here comes the rest of the scooters. Yeah, everybody showed up early. So, cool. We've done all the preparing that we can, and all that's left is to load the scooters and head out for California. Thanks for watching, and maybe we'll see you on the road.